What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for The Witch and the Beast. This is episode 7 and 8, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade. The reason why we're doing two episodes is because we did do a recording last week for episode 7. However, unfortunately, there were some technical issues with that, and I couldn't really fix it in the editing process, so we pretty much had to re-record this. So I figured we might as well just do the both of the episodes as well. You know, both 7 that came out last week and 8 that came out recently. But yeah, so this is like just, of course, a continuation of from picking up where the last episode left off, where they, I think in episode 7, like they encountered Helga.
Yeah, it was so like when they wanted to to help out Helga due to the fact that I think it was Asaf realizes that she was not the person who committed the murders prior.
Yeah.
So what was happening is they at the beginning of episode 7 they were going up against Matt Kugat, who is one of the leaders of the Paladin Corps, and they easily get overwhelmed against him. And of course, Asaf gets frozen in place while both Helga and Guido get taken in by the Paladin Corps. But of course, at the same time, they try to take the cursed sword with them, but only then they realize that the sword like is able to tempt the weaker minded Paladin Corps members into fighting each other.
Yeah. I think also before this, Ashkan the demon sword gets separated from Helga after Matt Kugat chases her, and then the Ashkan asks Matt to wield him because I guess he saw Matt as more worthy. But yeah, so the demon sword has the power to hypnotize people to kill each other for I guess for whoever is worthy to possess it.
Yeah, and then but then of course it's also revealed who the real perpetrator is. But yeah, of course there's this little flashback which shows a flashback snippet or of sorts with Helga visiting the town that she's currently in, basically just wandering about as a tourist, interacting with other people, only to realize that the following day that the people she interacted with ended up getting killed, and she thought it was Ashkan who committed those murders, but of course, he of course denies it, and it's revealed due to Asaf's deductions that it's very likely that Helga had nothing to do with the murders in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. So after that, basically the both Guido and Helga try to use the confusion to try to escape, but they basically Helga ends up staying behind, and Guido escapes by throwing herself out a window.
Yeah, I think it was Helga who pushes
Or,
her
oh
out of
yeah,
that
yeah, that's
window.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course the real perpetrator is what was it? I think it was the emissary from the Holy Church, who
Yeah.
they call the Executioner, and he pretty much takes control over every single one of the Paladin Corps members, as well as what was it? Kugat's lieutenant, who she ends up turning against him at the end of his fight against Asaf.
Yeah, and I think Asaf is also just stuck at the moment too. He's encased. Half his body, I think, is encased in ice.
Yeah, and then of course, she also supposedly shoots Asaf dead, but of course at the last minute, Kugat uses an ability to block the bullets from hitting him. So of course in the following episode we see, of course, Guido finding Asaf, and and a wounded Matt Kugat, who's pretty much convinced that the executioner is the real culprit, and it's more evident once he brings in like pretty much every single member of the Paladin Corps under his control, as well as as what was it, Kugat's lieutenant.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, he also reveals that the executioner wants to take control of the demon sword Ashcan. Basically he impales he ends up impaling Helga in the back. Basically, it's the reason why is like he needs like I think the blood of a witch or a witch's heart to unseal its power.
Yeah, and we also find out that I guess like I think does Helga I guess she gets brought under his control somehow or something because she ends up giving him the sword. Um,
Yeah, so she was briefly brainwashed by him when it was shown at the last episode.
yeah.
But of course she temporarily
Oh,
like
that's right.
breaks
Yeah.
out of it.
So we
Yeah.
should mention at the beginning of the episode. I think that's what does happen to her because it's not really clear. Because at first it just looked like she was maybe being tortured by him, but I guess that's what happened is that he ends up like brainwashing her.
Yeah. But but she like I said, she manages to temporarily break free from it when the executioner reveals that he was responsible for what happened to Helga and her family I think like sometime prior to this.
Yeah, and from there we go into a flashback about. Well, we see a flashback about Helga and her family. Apparently, that her family has always been, I guess, tasked with protecting the demon sword. And then one day, the executioners from the church basically like raid their house and brainwash Helga's family into killing each other. And in an attempt to try to steal the demon sword. But Helga escapes with the help of her sister, who would remain sane, who helped her escape with the demon sword. And then her sister gets caught and ends up getting killed. So she does end up escaping with Ashcan, but then all of her family ends up dying.
Yeah. And so of course bringing us back to the present, what um once Ashcan's power gets released, it pretty much creates havoc all around the city. With the executioner believing that he could control its power, with his like brainwashing abilities, but unfortunately it doesn't work that way. So like he comes up with different ways to try to control it, maybe by sacrificing as many as many of the subordinates that he has under his control, to the point where he wants to sacrifice all the citizens around the city in order to control the power.
Yeah, according to Ashef, like the demon sword doesn't really follow anybody's orders in particular. It just after you unleash it, it just goes wild and wants to destroy everything. I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. So with with the sword's power just pretty much creating havoc around the city, Asaf encourages Guido to kiss Helga, but to not only
Well,
to potentially, yeah,
yeah, I mean, he doesn't necessarily say that that she should kiss her, but he says that he's going to grant her wish of having a kiss, which I think she assumes is going to be from him, but of course ends up being from Guido.
yeah. It's not what Helga technically wanted in the
Yeah,
first place, but it's pretty much the only way they can like, and they can go up against like this destructive power that's been unleashed.
yeah.
Thanks to the executioner.
I mean, it's the next episode is going to be really interesting because we get to see. I mean, we've seen it before. We've seen Gyudo take on that form before in the first episode when her powers are unleashed. But we get to see a little bit more of it in the next episode. It's also going to be interesting to see how they do this particular fight. Um, Unfortunately, I don't really have any high expectations for it because the past two episodes I've just been I guess I really shouldn't say necessarily disappointed because it has been fairly consistent with everything we've seen from just the animation quality so far, but it's just been everything's just felt kind of I guess you'd say flat, like just not really interesting to look at in terms of the fight scenes or anything like that. So I'm not really, like I said, I don't really have any high expectations for the fight in the next episode. I know how it looks in the, like I said, again, I sound like a broken record, but I know how it looks in the manga, and it's not. I just know it's not going to look like anything like that when we see it in the anime form, unfortunately. But I will say, like I said in the scrapped recording, I do think it is at least doing a fairly good job of adapting the manga's plot. Just not so much at adapting the way the fight scenes are supposed to play out. Mostly because of, I guess, the animation studio that's doing it, and I maybe also the director to some extent, considering he doesn't really have a lot of experience with this kind of show.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before with the Yokohama animation, I mean the last show that they worked on, of
Kingdoms of
course,
Ruin.
The Kingdoms of Ruin, like it just started off strong, but then it kind of just like fell off a cliff soon after that. And
I mean, the thing with this
which in
show,
the
at least, is that I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's kind of had the same. It's been at least fairly consistent throughout. I would say, not that it's been bad, but that it's been a fairly consistent quality. Um, I guess with Kingdoms of Ruin, maybe it had promise in the beginning, and then it just fell off a cliff. I guess this series could still do that though. So I guess that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, Kingdoms of Ruin like kind of left the show off in such a weird spot, inconclusively, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, for Witch and the Beast, I mean, it had its story, story arcs have been fairly interesting, to some extent, a lot more so than Kingdoms of Ruin, in my opinion.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think like so far the what was it the Helga story arc with with the demon sword is, yeah, I think one of the more interesting story arcs, so far. I mean, considering
Mm.
the fact that it's one of the longer story arcs we've seen compared to the other ones, which has only been like 2 episodes each.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't really have too much else to say about the episode, though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, not too much. I mean, I am kind of interested in how it's going to conclude next week, considering that that next week is, they said it's going to be the epilogue episode for the Demon Sword arc.
Yeah, I do have some predictions for how that episode is going to end. I guess I kind of underestimated how much content, or I guess overestimated, I should say, how much content the season, or I guess this season would cover from the manga. So I think I have a pretty good idea of where that episode might end. I actually was at first predicting that where that would end would probably be how the first season, or if they're going to do another season, how this season might end. But I guess it might just be how that episode ends. So I mean, after this, we might enter into a new arc. So that's where I'm not too familiar with the manga beyond that point. So I'll definitely have to get back into it just so I can at least do some comparisons when those episodes come out. But yeah. But yeah, guys. So that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.